that might have resolved the issue. Welcome everybody to the Phalcon Community Hangout. Although this is October, this is supposed to be the September Community Hangout. I completely forgot to post the link or the blog post last week, and actually I was talking to Rude on Saturday, and we both realized that we were supposed to have a hangout the last weekend, but we forgot. So 1 week late. This is our September hangout in October. Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here, and let's get to it. Alright, what's our agenda for today? Of course, we're going to have the introduction. We welcome everybody. As usual, we're going to thank the whole community and the contributors. This is a very important thing, and we always want to help the community for all the work that they put in, whether this is documentation, whether this is suggestions, whether this is asking for new features, testing the versions that we have out there, and so on and so forth. We're going to give you a status update. What happened since our last hangout? We have a new version that came out, the release candidate 1. Also, we're going to give you a status update on the documentation, the Devtools, the sample applications that we have, vokuro, etc. And then we'll have Q&A. Yes, this is correct. We had a hangout, but it was between Rude and myself. We forgot to invite the community. That's absolutely correct. So, for the community, we thank you all again. We might sound like a broken record, but without any community, we're just talking to ourselves. The community is what drives this project forward. And it is exceedingly awesome to see this engagement going on. We thank you all, and this is a slide with all the links of the social media that you can find us and interact with us. You can find on the first link who has contributed to the Phalcon repository, if you're interested. If you're not, it's not a big deal. I mean, there's no laurel or badge that you might end up. So we have also the forum where you can go and post your question, and members of the community can actually interact with you and give you samples and all that stuff. For quick and dirty, or just come over and hang out and say hi, you can use the Discord server that we have. We also have a Telegram channel that we just post news for those that prefer to be on Telegram. Again, the same thing with Gap, Parler, Facebook and Twitter, and of course Stack Overflow. If you want to ask your question there, you will need to tag it as Phalcon. So the update, a few names here, Timur, Rich Milnes, maybe I massacred that a little bit, Ekmst, Balas, I know Zibili is Balas, and Jeckerson. A few names to mention, as well as many others that have engaged in discussions. Especially on Discord, we have a lot of discussions going on. There is an increased activity in the Russian channel, so there's a lot of people asking. We do have specific channels for different languages. Definitely we have Spanish and Russian, so if you think that you have a problem with the English, or you're not that well versed, you can definitely come over and try and talk to people in your language. So what we have right now, we have 5 open PRs. 3 of them are for 4.1, so we're not touching those. 2 of them are addressing issues that have been discovered the last couple of days, mostly interface related. We have 97 open issues, and the vast majority of those are new feature requests. And on our 4.0 project, we have 6 to-do cards. Out of those, 4 of them are reminders for us to upgrade our apps, Vokuro, Invo, the sample applications, or any documentations. We have 3 in progress. Out of those, 2 of them again are either apps or documents, so it's really one card that we have to deal with as a bug, and we have 642 done. That's a really good number. Again, this is not exactly the number of bugs that we fixed, because a card is not only the reporting of the bug, but also the pull request. So that number might be a little bit off. Still, it's quite a good number. And I'm getting tons of messages on my phone, so please forgive me. I'll just put it on Do Not Disturb so that we don't have any pings. Also, we have the 4.0.0 RC1, the release candidate version. So that means that we're getting extremely close to releasing v4. We have an update on documentation, as well as 2 of our applications, Vokuro as well as REST API, on what has happened. So let's get to it. We have an update for Zephyr. Also, huge thanks, of course, to Sergey and Dream, as well as a couple of other people. I apologize, I forgot to put your names in here, but nonetheless, your contributions are very well appreciated. We have released the Zephyr 0.12.5, and then we found that we had a problem. We released 0.6. We found another problem, 0.7, and now we're at 0.8 and working for 0.9. The reason for all of these rapid succession releases was that certain maintainers had different build environments, and they managed to find those little edge cases that we didn't think of in our code. So we had to adjust Zephyr in order to take care of all of these. So that's why we had a lot of releases very quickly. We have worked on ensuring that we have stronger type checks. We've worked on resolving seg faults as well as memory leaks, and the last one is important. We're also working again on what we've been doing. This is an ongoing work to actually introduce coroutines with yield into Zephyr, so that we can utilize them in Phalcon, as well as you can utilize them in your own custom extensions. And 0.12.9 Zephyr is coming up with more type and interface checks. One thing to note for those that do not know, PHP itself has a lot of memory leaks. It might sound a surprise, but it does. Maybe they're not 100% visible. Maybe they are visible only in extremely rare situations with some sort of a weird scenario going on, but those memory leaks do exist. And because Zephyr is bridging the gap of a high to low memory, high to low language, so C being a really nitty-gritty language into the processor, into the memory and all that stuff, whereas Zephyr brings you one level up, offering you the usability and ease of use in programming without the need to know C. When we do our translation to C language, lo and behold, we actually hit those edge case scenarios and memory leaks, and then we have to address it and fix it ourselves. And this actually makes Phalcon even better, because it ensures that Phalcon uses only the resources that it needs and nothing more. Okay, so we're getting on those. Really good work from all the guys that contribute to Zephyr. We thank you once again. the regular slide that we have here with regards to translations and documentation. Again, huge thanks to everybody that is offering their time to translate the Phalcon documentation in Crowden. If you're interested, we have 4 different projects, 2 for Zephyr, 2 for Phalcon. You can go and log in into Crowden. You can log in with your GitHub, for instance, and then you can join the project and start translating in your language. We only translate V4 documents. We're not touching V3 anymore. All translations have to be approved by a proofreader, which are members of the community that we know that are native, that the language that they proofread is their native tongue, and then they can actually offer translations or suggestion to what has been translated, so that we have very good content out there. So what happens after that is Crowden automatically pushes the translations in our repository. We manually merge the request and update the relevant submodules, and then the site is deployed. And at that point, Algolia overnight will come over and crawl the site, and everything would be ready for you to be able to search if you want, or even to read. So to the best parts here, and thank you, Christian, for the good words. I'm reading the chat here. Definitely what Rude said on Discord, we always like to hear what you're working on. We always want to know what is going on in the community, any concerns you might have, or other than that, we definitely want to hear from you. So back to the presentation. V4 RC1, the release candidate 1. From what I see, we're most likely going to have one more release candidate before we're ready to push things out. This release candidate really should have been a beta, but we decided to change the name. You know, it is what it is. We got that there. So we made a lot of alignments to the interfaces. And what do I mean by that? So in Zephyr, if you declare a function to have the first parameter as, let's say, a string, and the second parameter as another string, and it returns a string, in any class that uses that interface, that method has to be spot on. So string, string, and return string. It's exactly the same as in PHP. Now in PHP, because it's interpreted, sorry, there's a ton of static tool analyzers or tools that you can use, and even PHP Storm would actually tell you that the interface is wrong. All right, we don't have that in Zephyr at all, and there's no way that you can make it. So the check between the interface and the actual class has to be made mostly manually, but also Travis, the CI that we use, will definitely help us with that, but initially it has to be manual. With the latest releases of Zephyr, we managed to introduce a lot more type hinting and checking capabilities, so Zephyr starts complaining much earlier, giving us, hey, you made a mistake here. It's not string string and return string, it's variable mixed string. So you have to adjust your code to ensure that the interfaces are correct. We've corrected a lot of typos. We added a lot of missing references and use statements, and we made sure that we aligned the declaration of interface to class. Now, somebody might ask, are you done with all these alignments? Probably not. There might be this odd case here and there that we've missed something. This is why it's very important for the community to help us identify all of these issues. One other thing that thank you, Ruth, for reminding me in the chat, is that we changed the way in Zephyr mostly, we changed the way the IDE stubs are generated. For those that do not know, IDE stubs is a project that Phalcon has created, and it creates stubs of all the classes, all the interfaces, pretty much everything that Phalcon has. As a result, if you clone that repository and you add it as an external source, as an external library into your project, then you're going to be able to have autocomplete in PHP Storm, for instance, right? Or you could add it into your composer as a dev dependency. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but we did a lot of work with that, and when the stubs were generated, then we managed to find what is going on with the interfaces, and that gave us a huge hint of where we should pay attention. Phalcon is a really big project in terms of lines of code, as well as classes and methods and everything like that. So it is easy to make a mistake if you don't have the tools that traditional PHP projects or libraries have to offer with those static analyzers. Okay, so for RC1, we added one thing. We changed 17 different things, and some of those are quite long. This has to do with the interface changes that I mentioned. We fixed 20 issues. Some of them were bugs. Some of them were things that we found. Some of them were logic changes, and we removed 5 additional classes, methods, and all that stuff. And we also did constructor changes. And here's the method to the madness, as they call it. So for some constructors in components, we actually changed the signature of the constructor to have the ability for you to inject the relevant components that constructor or that component requires. So the example here is with the security component. Now you see that the constructor used to be nothing, and now it changed to constructor, and then passed a session interface, session object, and then a request interface, a request object in it. So looking at the slide, the first line under the construct is new security $session $request, and the old way was new security. So one will have to ask why. Our dependency injection container is based on the IOC pattern, right? And in layman's terms, to understand, is that you have a bucket, that's your container, you drop services in there, and you leave it there on the side. And then in your components, wherever you go, whatever you do, if you need something, you actually go to the container and you pull it out. You pull that item out, and then you use it. In our case here, in the security object, we needed the session and the request. And somewhere in the code of the security, at some point, we're just saying, hey, go to the container, grab the security object from there, or service, and then go and grab the request service, and then give it to me because I need to work. Okay, that is the IOC. We mentioned this before in previous Hangouts, that our view is to actually create a container that will be PSR compliant, but also it would allow you to auto wire things. Okay, so you will not have to worry about what services you need to inject where. In order for you to have that auto wiring, you have to inject your services in the constructor. So this way, this is the reason why certain classes have had their constructors changed, so that all these can be injected if you want it right now, but in the future, when we start developing the auto wiring constructor, we're not going to have a problem with Semver, and we're not going to change any interfaces when that time comes. Okay. So yeah, welcome to all the guys in the Hangout. Thank you, Ruud, for being such a gracious host in the chat. If you are interested, final point on this, we have the change log. You can have a look at it, what has changed and where we added constructor arguments. And this thing is ready right now, so you can use it if you want to. You can manually inject yourself the session and the request objects into security, and when the time comes for the security component to use those, it's going to use your own stuff, whatever you passed. It's not going to go to the container, the DI container, to request those services. Okay. So documentation. This is the bane of my existence for the last 2 months now or more. We have gone through pretty much every document there was through the first pass, and now we are on the second and final pass before we start doing a lot of proofing. So we have 28 documents remaining to review. This might seem a lot, but in the previous Hangout, a reminder was that we had 40. Now, every single document that we have is reviewed for accuracy. Then the way I do it anyway. So I grab one document, I look at it for accuracy, and make sure that the English is proper, right? Then I go into Phalcon and I open the component itself, and then I take all the methods and the properties that are used by that component and I paste it in the document. All right? And then slowly I start explaining what the component does. So I will explain the constructor if it requires specific initialization parameters. I will explain the getters and setters of that component. I will explain specific processes that are run with this component. And then I will try to explain it in groups of how things are done. So I'll give you one example from what we're looking at, the completed part. So in the application CLI, it's a normal application, so I had to pretty much say what is going on with the CLI, where we're going to use it, how we're going to use it. Then we offer an example of a CLI application, and then we start dissecting what the CLI application does in our example. Also, again, the constructor, the different methods, getters and setters that this uses. When you call handle, what happens? The dispatcher that for the CLI application that is different from the dispatcher of the MVC, the different routes that you can get, the modules that you can set, and so on and so forth. Different examples. And I'm trying to be as thorough as possible. To give you an idea, the CLI document, the application CLI document that was there, it has increased by threefold in terms of how much information we put in there. Is it perfect? No, definitely not. It could definitely require some more attention, but that particular document has not been touched since version 2 or something. So there were a lot of things missing, and a lot of it stood to reason that a lot of developers would have been scratching their heads on how to use the CLI application. So using this approach, it is extremely time consuming. It might take well over a couple of days to just complete a simple document, but the outcome of this exercise is a much thorough documentation, so that the user has all the tools they need, the developer rather, in order to build the best applications they can. Additionally, we also worked on the HTTP PSR PSR7 documents. We did some revisions, image installation, introduction, MVC, tutorial, vokuro, and Vault. They've all been addressed. Actually, the tutorial vokuro has been adapted to the brand new version of vokuro that we have in the pipeline, the V4 one, which explains everything that happens in that application in an extremely thorough way, so that you can understand the application from start to finish. There are certain things that are done in a certain way. It's not the best way, but it is a way. The purpose of the tutorial is just to show you one way of doing things. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is how you should build your application. Your application should always build based on the requirements that you have. Okay, and added a lot more stuff for Vault, just ensuring that the documentation that we offer is as full as possible. Final bit, you're gonna see it bottom right. Actually, my face is there. Let me see if I can actually move my face from there. Where is it? Let me. All right, so I switched off the camera for a bit. As you can see, down at the bottom right, you see a little picture for the tutorial vokuro page. We have a document status. This is all on the V4 documentation. It actually tells you that this document has been reviewed, and it's not the old document. All right. You will see also a red label saying in progress or under review or needs review. I don't remember what we used, but on all of those 28 documents that we mentioned in the first part of the slide, in the first bullet point of the slide, those have the little red label, and we change them accordingly. So when I finish the writing the document, then it goes into review. Rude usually reviews it and makes some suggestions, and we change it, and then it goes live. Nothing stops you from creating a pull request or even discussing with us what you think should be changed in relevant parts of the documentation. Perhaps something that I feel is self-explanatory, you might not. So please don't be shy in engaging with us and helping us make the documentation, making the documentation as easy and as thorough as possible. Additional things for the documentation. Our schedule is to complete these last 28 documents that I mentioned. So I'm gonna be I started working on the web server setup, but what I'll need to do is set up Windows-based web servers and take recent screenshots, because the screenshots that we have are a few years old, and they show PHP 5 or something like that. So I got to do that, but instead of doing that, I'll divert a little bit to the tutorials, the REST API that we have. Many thanks to Jefferson again for helping us with this upgrade for the API. After that, and after the web server, I'm going to concentrate on finalizing the application part, and then the little bits and pieces, hanging fruits, the DI events and session. Devtools, I might work on that or I might not. Waiting a little bit to coordinate with the Devtools that are under review right now. We need to upgrade them. Then I'm going to concentrate on controllers, views, routing, and dispatcher, the whole MVC stack as well as models. And then I'm going to finalize with the DB, which is something like 6 or 7 documents altogether, explaining the different parts. Now, and then tidy up. Now, this particular order is not set in stone. I might just change things a little bit because I got fed up with reading about the application all the time. But the progress is done. It's in our docs repository. If you're interested, you can have a look at the pinned issue at the top. This actually shows you how we're managing this and all that. Of course, once the documents are completed, then all those relevant issues are gonna be closed. One last thing, again, if you're interested, the last thing that we're gonna do with the tidy up process is we're gonna go through all the pull requests that we have, and we're gonna search for the label that is called docs needed. It's a yellow label, and you can see that there. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that we read what that pull request was for, and then go to the relevant section in the documents just to make sure that we've addressed that change, because those Those changes are mostly interface changes and all that, and some of them we might have already addressed them, but we just don't want to miss anything, just to ensure that all the information, as I mentioned numerous times today, is there for the developer to work with. So the developers and the IDE stubs. We briefly touched a little bit on this earlier. Jackerson is leading the effort on the Devtools. We didn't have that much traction because we were focused on some of the sample applications, but now we're redoubling our efforts to work on the Devtools and make sure that they are fully aligned with V4 and they produce the relevant outcome that we want. For the Docker images for Phalcon, they are on hold until we release V4. Once we do that, we're going to have Docker images built for every release and for every platform. As far as the IDE stubs are concerned, I did mention earlier that we had some good changes in Zephyr, the way the stubs are being generated, and as such, the stubs are much more thorough and much more accurate. And of course, the other benefit was that we found misalignments in the interfaces as well. Okay. The final thing that we did with the stubs is that we added all the necessary use declarations at the top of each stub class, and that resolved a lot of issues that the community was facing. Okay. So, sample applications. We made a lot of changes to V4, and clearly all the applications were out of date. Were outdated. Okay, so Jackerson, again, huge thanks to the guy. He helped us go through that process. Vokuro has been done. We adapted everything with the beta. There was a review, refactoring, updated everything to the latest Twitter bootstrap. We ensure that PSR2, PSR4 are observed. We run Psalm on it to ensure that everything looks fine. We've implemented Finks migrations with seeds. Just a quick note, I'm using we as a community, all right? It's not that I'm taking away from Jackerson, okay? We've implemented codeception acceptance tests for all the controllers. We also added the .env package from Vance Lucas, I think it's Vance. There, in order to put configurations according to what you need. There was a code refactor with regards to the PHP 7 syntax. And we also abide by the Composer project installation, the PHP PDS, the standard that exists for Composer packages. Plus, we added everything on Travis, so that tests are run. Huge amount of work. It was done extremely well with very small iterations, as small as possible. Review by the team, and then we would deploy it and so on and so forth, and we're very happy with the result. This is a really thorough application, and this is pretty much what I've used to describe the tutorial in the documentation. Okay. Now also Jackerson has worked on the REST API. For those that do not know what that is, it was what was called the Phalcon-API repository, but we thought that having Phalcon as the organization and Phalcon as the part of the name of the repository, it was not, it was just Phalcon. So we renamed it to REST API. It's a very powerful API sample that utilizes JSON Web Tokens. More on that on the documentation when I finish writing it, of course. But Jackerson did adapt the code to V4. He reviewed and refactored and updated namespaces accordingly, added Psalm as a static code analyzer. And in the future, we need to enable Scrutinizer and Travis for the package. The package did have scrutinizer on it, but it was working for v3, so now we have to adjust a little bit scrutinizer so that it installs properly v4 and then runs all the tests and all that stuff. And welcome to Anton or Jickerson that joined the chat. Oh, thank you, Ruud. One note: the Alpha 1 stubs were done manually, but the Zephyr generation is already fixed and it's deployed. So we had to take one extra step to get this thing working. Okay. And that was it. Q&A time. Whoever wants to ask questions, now is the time. And a big thank you for everybody. Thank you, Emilio, for the congratulations. It's really nice and rewarding to see that you're getting really close to your goal. And if you guys look at the history, really we started putting a lot of work in January with V4, and we had to do a lot of work to get to where we are right now. And the issue that we have is that we have to think about where we want to go, and we have to change interfaces accordingly with where we want to go. Case in point, what I mentioned with the constructors, that we added optional injection of services in there, and it's not done on all of the components, but it's done on several of them. And the reason for that is because we follow Semver, we cannot change the interfaces without changing the version to B5. So yeah, that's a lot of work, and thank you to everybody as usual. So hello, Max from the Dominican Republic. The family is doing great. The kiddos are growing like little weeds, and life goes on, man. We're just getting older every single day. So for Ruud, what is my favorite can in the background? Out of all of that, I would say my favorite can would be the corn, because it's extremely sweet and you can eat it straight up like that. It's similar to popcorn. You just put it in your mouth and you're done. So yeah. So SO Interactive, what's the expected release for stable production version? That's a little bit tricky, and I know I am the bottleneck right now, because I'm the one writing the documents. We have the following things to do before we release V4 as stable version. We have maybe 3 issues in total that we need to address. Issues meaning bugs. I believe, let me see. I'll tell you in just a second. Okay, so looking at the project, we have one bug that breaks BC. It's a fatal error return value of the MVC view engine abstract engine. Parcel must be of type string. Return null. There is a PR already by Cameron Hall that will address this, so this one should be ready by today. We have one issue in the to-do, slow benchmarks with response status code 200. Okay, I could not reproduce something like that. I ran certain tests and benchmarks with V4. It was reasonable, the difference between setting the headers yourself versus setting the headers and status code using the set status code in the response. So we haven't verified that this is slow yet. we might do a push to figure out what's going on that. And the last part is it's an NFR. I don't know if we're going to be able to squeeze that in. It will depend on how busy Sergey is. Mostly the vault strings do not know about escape sequences, and that's where we're getting with that. So these are the three items that we have remaining for V4. Okay, now let's say we have those ready today. What else is there? We have to adjust the Devtools. I'm expecting great work from Jeckerson or Anton to be done. Let's say, for argument's sake, that can take a week. Okay, and then it's me preparing the documents. Now, what we could do is we could turn around and say, well, we can release V4, but bear in mind that these documents have not been updated. And it's not something that I want to do because it's not very professional, and you guys deserve better. So I really want us to have at least reviewed all the documents and produce the necessary wording for you guys to have all the information when you embark on building your V4 applications. Now, the V4 documentation could very well be used to explain behavior in V3 as well. A lot of stuff has not changed, so you could definitely use that. So I understand that I'm the bottleneck right now, but I'm trying my best without getting a divorce to fulfill that documentation. Hello to Izo. Welcome, buddy. It's okay that you missed it. Sorry, man. But you can always watch the recap. We haven't been on for very long. It's just 45 minutes. So yeah, that's the thing. And yes, Rude, it is corny what I said. Definitely. And yeah, absolutely. What Rude wrote in the chat, the docs and the Devtools are the big ones that we need. So as far as the framework is concerned, we're not adding anything. We're just going into maintenance mode, making sure that everything is fine, and anything that was reported, we're fixing it. And again, I'm gonna give kudos to Timur Flush and Ekmst. These two guys were working with the PSR7 functionality, and they actually identified two areas where we had logic bugs, and those were resolved pretty much the same day. So those are going to be implemented for RC2, and then we're just gonna hover a little bit before we release a version. It might be a little bit premature for me to say, but you could be expecting RC2 to come even next week. So and depending on how fast I work on the documents, it's going to be something that needs to be addressed. So let me put it to you this way to give you some realistic stuff. Let's assume that I work on one document one day, all right? So to finish everything, we're gonna finish in 1 month. Okay. Now, hopefully, I'm not gonna do one document a day. I'm gonna do more, but it all depends. Depends on how much time I have. So, anybody else have any questions or any concerns? Okay. I guess if nobody has anything, we can call it a day. We're at 48 minutes, so I can give you back your Saturday and you can have fun. Yes, that is correct. The bugs that we find, we're fixing them as fast as we can. And that of course takes time from reviewing documentation, but the good thing is that I can write documents and just send them to be reviewed, and then Ruud, whenever he has time, he can actually go through quite a lot of them, suggest minor additions and changes and all that stuff, and then we just adjust the document. That would be it, and we're done. But if you look at the issue that we have in the documents, hold on a sec. Just see if I can pull that here. So if you look at the documents and you go to the issues, you're gonna see the top one that says status update, and this is pretty much what we have left. Okay, so it is just the page length so far. And if you really look at it, we have one section down here which is just the tutorials to build, and one big section here which is the database, and then a smaller section which is the applications. So assuming that I write all the DB documents, I already got rid of 10 of them or something, and then it's play along with the rest of them. It is interesting to find what has been missing from the documents, and I really apologize, guys, but at least we're moving ahead, making sure that everything is thorough. Okay. And by the way, down here is the completed and reviewed list. As you can see, we have quite a few of them, and of course nothing stops you from actually looking at the code, looking at the markup documentation and suggesting changes yourself if you don't understand something, or if you feel that we need to change the wording or expand more, or we're blabbering there, and just shrink it and all that stuff. All right. Oh, last thing. Whoever wants to take part in Hacktoberfest, October is the Hacktoberfest day, so it is a good time to contribute to your favorite framework in one way or another, and then most likely you're gonna get a t-shirt from DigitalOcean for Hacktoberfest. Okay? Alright, thank you all for joining, and thank you to the ones that will watch this later on, and talk to you on Discord, forum, and all of our social media. Alright? Now if I can find how to stop this. Okay. Alright, thank you all. I found it. Yep, Phalcon. Yay.